This is a very exciting video because today I get to show you the process of how I made our live edge countertop for the inside of the bus. And I am so pleased with how it came out. It was one of the most anticipated projects because I knew when we started building it that I wanted a live edge countertop. I've always wanted one, and I thought the project would be super fun and very different. I've never done anything like it before, and it definitely was a process. And so we had some ups and downs, but I really love the end result. So I can't wait for you guys to see how we made it. Let's get started with the materials. Alright, so there weren't really that many beginner epoxy videos online, so these are the materials that I thought would work the best. We started off with this glaze coat. This is a high gloss finish epoxy. I got a gallon. It's crystal clear and it's specifically made for countertops and bar tops and things like that, so it is food safe. Now, I couldn't find a reference video with an exact list of materials, but in each video the resin was 100% waterproof and heat resistant, and that is definitely ideal for a kitchen counter. These 220 grit 5-inch sandpaper sheets are going to go on my oscillating sander for sanding between the epoxy layers. We are definitely going to get messy up in here, so I got 2 plastic drop cloths in order to keep our workspace clean because this stuff is going to go everywhere. They call it flood coat for a reason. And these rags serve the same purpose. I want to make sure that we keep everything as clean as possible. Clear Scotch tape, not masking tape, in order to tape off the bottom of the counter. It'll catch the drips of epoxy and we can just peel them off later. I recommend 2 mixing tubs per day that you're going to be working on the epoxy because you're going to have parts A and B that both get mixed together, and if you have any issues like I did, you're definitely going to want to have an extra bucket. Epoxy sets because of a chemical reaction, so you want to have different stir sticks and buckets each time that you mix it. I bought this squeegee in order to make sure that all of our layers of epoxy were even and smooth, and it worked pretty well. It was a little bit long. I did end up going back to Home Depot and getting some little plastic scrapers. Silicone ones work wonderful as well, but you definitely need these. Fire! We got a butane torch, which I did have some issues with. I actually returned this one and another one because they kept dying out on me for some reason, so I'll have a clip in the video. If anyone knows why that is, please let me know, because there were like 5 of us there and none of us could figure out why they weren't working, but you need the fire in order to torch out all the bubbles. We decided to leave the bark on the outer part of our countertop, and in order to get the epoxy into all those little nooks and crannies, we use these brushes. I just filmed a whole time lapse of me sanding the top and bottom of the whole countertop and the top and bottom of our little cutout piece from here that we're probably going to use up there. And I realized I didn't hit record. So it has been sanded with 220 grit sandpaper on a rotating 5-inch circle sander. So everything is sanded and prepped already. Now it's just the scary part of actually mixing it and putting on the first seal coat. So we've got that and all this stuff. Gotta mix it. And cheers right here. Dink. I already forgot how much we're doing. 1 1/4. Pause. This is where everything went very badly, pretty quickly. Do you see how much we're mixing? Yeah. We started glugging all of that stuff into the buckets, not realizing that I had pretty much 6 times overestimated how much epoxy we needed. Yeah. That's how much. And they have to mix together. What was I thinking? Anyways.
Too much because we know that we have too much.
To no one's surprise, it basically combusted.
Jeez.
see the steam?
Yeah.
This looks like it's gonna explode, and this feels like a freaking
It's very hot
pan.
to the touch, like
Oh my
like a
God.
burner top. It's very hot to the touch.
Okay, so let's get rid of
Small
that before we all
batches.
die. Small batches, noted. This one's looking pretty good. The first seal coat.
You don't need anything to light it. It does itself.
Okay, fire. But this one looks good, except for that chemical reaction that we had where we almost burnt the house down. And this disaster happened. All these it's so bad, but can you see the smoke? It's crazy. But once this is done, we'll just sand it down and do another coat. So hopefully we can salvage this piece. The rest of it's looking pretty good though. We've got a torch going for some bubbles. Beautiful.
You're fine.
Does it look pretty in the video? Oh, look at all those bubbles popping. See it all like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, is that what's So it's been over 12 hours, and we've just come back to see our first layer, and I think it looks pretty good. This is just sawdust, don't look at that. But like, it looks pretty good. It's not anything crazy, definitely not like this one, but we're gonna fix that. But this looks really, really good. So I'm excited about that. The next step is we're taking 220 grit sandpaper on this oscillating sander, and it's going to go over the whole thing. And there's going to be a lot of teeny tiny scratch marks, but that's fine. That's just what the second layer of epoxy is going to grip onto. So, some things that I learned yesterday versus today. When you're doing this, just make sure you do it in little batches. You can always mix more, but due to the reaction you saw earlier, kind of what happens when too much epoxy is sitting at one time, it becomes a hazard. So make sure you're doing these in small batches. This should be fine. It's about 16 ounces to cover this whole 7 by 2 foot piece of live edge for the seal coat. It should be more than enough. And I'm gonna mix it thoroughly for 3 minutes. You wanna make sure everything's mixed. I didn't have an issue yesterday with bubbles at all, luckily, and I didn't have an issue with soft spots. I haven't seen any soft spots today, which would occur if you don't properly mix the epoxy, part A and part B together. And I haven't seen any of that, so it was definitely mixed properly yesterday. The bubbles were taken care of properly with the butane torch. The only issue that we really had was the amount of epoxy that we poured. We just poured way too much and it just started burning. So today I have learned from my mistakes. I'm going to continue mixing this until I'm satisfied with it, scraping all those edges, until they're fairly combined, and then I'm just going to start pouring and using my new little paddle tool to spread it around evenly. And it dried completely, even in the Florida humidity, overnight from about, I want to say 7 o'clock to it is now noon. So it looks good. I'm happy with it. Don't look at where it's a little bumpy up here, but as you can see, when you pour the epoxy, it drips off the edges and it's gonna create these little, well, drips. And so that's why we put the tape on in the very beginning after everything was sanded, because now you just pop it off and a lot of them just kind of come right off. And these big ones, you just take a sand or two, but for the most part, those are gonna come off. This is day 3 after the final flood coat has dried. I think it looks really good. Okay, I think the only spot that I messed up on really, it's like, right, so you can kind of see it right there, it's a little thin. But other than that, I mean, come on, for my first ever full, like, epoxy project, I mean, ever, I've never worked with epoxy before, I think it's pretty good. And Trevor left his touch right here by burning it. But it's not that bad and I like it. It means he put his mark on it, literally a burn mark right there. But I think it all looks really good and very happy that the AC situation worked out, so it all cured just fine. Again, it's only been, yeah, I can't pierce it or anything. It's only been, you know, less than 24 hours since the flood coat has dried. So I don't want to jump the gun and move it or put it in the bus until it's had at least 48 to 72 hours, just because I don't want it to get dented or anything like that. But I'm really excited. I say that a lot, but so many big things happening in the next couple days, the past couple days, the next couple weeks, and it's just all looking really good. So yay. What do you think, bud? The counter's all finished. You like the view? So we've got our stovetop built in. It fits perfectly in the little cutout that we made. I went ahead and velcroed with some extra strength velcro this knife block that was a gift from Mamu, Trevor's grandmother, and these are some secondhand knives as well. Some of them were gifts. This one was the only sharp knife that we had in our first apartment together, so we definitely had to keep that. And I'm really overall very, very happy with how the epoxy turned out. I think it just looks beautiful. And in the sunlight, it's just gorgeous. I absolutely love it. And it's so smooth, it's so easy to clean with just some wet wipes or a quick washcloth. It's really great, and it gives us a lot of space to do everything that we need to do in our little home. Right, Flounder?